There are names in history that aren't tied to victory or weapons, but to compassion and a spirit of unconditional service. Clara Barton. Her name didn't thunder like cannon fire, but quietly found its way into the hearts of countless soldiers. Amidst the smoke, the chaos, and the cries of the wounded, she appeared, like an angel. Few realize that before she became a symbol of humanitarianism, Clara was a shy, petite woman born into a modest family in Massachusetts. But from an early age, she possessed a rare gift, a heart that could not sit still in the face of suffering. When the Civil War tore the nation apart and thousands of soldiers fell each day, Clara couldn't just sit back and pray. She gathered bandages, medicine, food, and walked straight into the battlefield, a place where women were rarely seen. They called her the Angel of the Battlefield, because wherever there was need, she was there. Wherever there was pain, she brought hope. North or south, friend or foe, Clara believed every soldier deserved care and a chance to live. That journey didn't just save lives, it laid the foundation for one of the world's greatest humanitarian organizations, the American Red Cross. This is not just the story of a woman in wartime. It's the story of a soul that refused to surrender to darkness and a heart big enough to embrace a fractured nation. Clarissa Harlow Barton, better known as Clara, was born in 1821 in North Oxford, Massachusetts. Her family belonged to the middle class, descended from some of the earliest European settlers in America. Though they were not wealthy, they possessed something far more valuable, a deep sense of compassion. Clara was the youngest of 5 children, and from an early age, she stood apart. While other children played outside in the fields, Clara was often quiet, observant, and drawn to listening and caring. She was shy, almost painfully so, but inside her beat a heart that was both strong and profoundly sensitive. A life-changing event occurred when Clara was just 11 years old. Her beloved brother David suffered a serious injury in an accident. At that time, medicine was limited, and doctors could do very little. But young Clara stayed by his side for nearly 2 years. She taught herself how to change his bandages, administer medication, and lift his spirits with gentle fairy tales and kind words. It was during those long days and nights that Clara first discovered the essence of caregiving. It wasn't just about healing the body, it was about reaching the soul. And from that moment on, she knew she couldn't turn her back on the call to help others. In those days, no one expected a shy, slender girl to become a hero. But Clara's journey began not with fanfare, but with quiet devotion, caring for her brother with small hands and a tireless heart. Clara wasn't seeking glory. She simply couldn't sit idle when someone needed help, and that, perhaps, was the first sign of her greatness. When the American Civil War erupted in 1861, Clara Barton was working as a clerk at the U.S. Patent Office. But war did not permit her to remain behind a desk. From the very beginning, Clara understood something vital. Wounded soldiers needed more than bullets and bandages. They needed compassion, care, and a warm hand amid the chaos of war. She began gathering supplies, bandages, medicine, clothing, and food, not just from friends, but from the broader community. And when news broke of the first battle at Bull Run, Clara didn't hesitate. She didn't wait for an invitation or require permission. With a horse-drawn wagon full of supplies, she headed straight to the battlefield, becoming the first civilian woman in U.S. history to voluntarily appear on the front lines. On those blood-soaked fields, where the cries of the wounded echoed through the smoke, Clara did far more than deliver medical aid. She bandaged wounds, recorded the names of the fallen, read letters from loved ones, and, more often than not, was the last person to hold a soldier's hand before they passed. The men came to know her by a name filled with affection and reverence: the Angel of the Battlefield. Clara was present at some of the Civil War's most brutal battles: Antietam, Fredericksburg, and Petersburg. She stood just behind the front lines, in places where the ground was soaked in blood and artillery fire could end her life at any moment. But for Clara, nothing mattered more than making sure a wounded man had his forehead wiped, a sip of water to ease his pain, and the comfort of knowing he was not forgotten. Once, a bullet passed through her sleeve as she was tending to a wounded soldier. The same bullet took the life of the man she was trying to save. But Clara did not falter. She knew that physical pain could wound the body, but it was loneliness, being abandoned, that wounded the soul most deeply. Her unwavering courage and dedication made Clara Barton a household name across America. She was not a general, nor a politician, but she became a symbol of humanity in the midst of destruction. To her, every wound was a silent plea for help, and every small act of kindness held the power to save a life. When the gunfire fell silent across America's battlefields, most soldiers either returned home to their families or were laid to rest beneath the soil they fought to defend. But for Clara Barton, the war wasn't over. She knew that the wounds left by war were not just physical. They were emotional, spiritual, and marked by deep, unresolved loss. Immediately after the Civil War, Clara embarked on a new mission, helping families search for missing loved ones. At the time, there were no digital records, no centralized databases. Thousands of soldiers had vanished without a trace. Clara took it upon herself to write thousands of handwritten letters, responding to desperate pleas from mothers, wives, children, and families, all searching for sons, husbands, and fathers who never came home. She went on to establish the Office of Missing Soldiers, where she and her team worked tirelessly for years. Through extraordinary perseverance, Clara helped identify more than 22,000 missing soldiers, a remarkable achievement in an era with no modern technology. But Clara's mission didn't stop there. She soon traveled to Europe, where she encountered a young but promising humanitarian movement, the International Red Cross. In Switzerland, she learned of the Geneva Convention, an international agreement to protect the wounded, prisoners of war, and civilians during times of conflict. Clara was deeply moved. Upon returning to the United States, she came home with a bold new purpose: to bring the Red Cross to America. In 1873, after her transformative journey through Europe and deeply inspired by the International Red Cross, Clara Barton returned to the United States with a bold vision: to bring that humanitarian model to a nation still healing from the wounds of the Civil War, yet now also facing natural disasters, disease outbreaks, and widespread hardship. Clara understood that the Red Cross could be more than a wartime organization. It could become a lifeline in times of crisis, a network that responded to floods, fires, epidemics, and poverty. But she also knew that turning this vision into reality required official recognition from the U.S. government, an entirely new kind of battle. With tireless determination, Clara spent nearly a decade lobbying lawmakers, writing letters, and advocating to anyone who would listen. Finally, in 1881, her efforts bore fruit. Clara Barton founded the American Red Cross and became its first president. Under her leadership, the American Red Cross expanded its mission beyond the battlefield to address domestic disasters. One of its earliest efforts included aiding victims of the 1881 Michigan forest fires and floods, followed by relief missions in the Texas famine, Iowa tornadoes, and countless other tragedies. Wherever there was suffering, Clara Barton and the Red Cross were there. She didn't just provide aid. She laid the foundation for modern volunteerism, grassroots fundraising, and community response, core values that the American Red Cross upholds to this day. By the time she retired at age 83, Clara Barton had not only written a new chapter in American humanitarian history, she had become a national symbol of compassion, unwavering service, and the quiet strength of a woman who met a turbulent age with courage and purpose. Clara Barton. The name doesn't just bring to mind a woman with a medical bag crossing the bloodied fields of war. It stands as a symbol of a tireless heart, one that never turned away from the pain of others. She didn't just witness war. She walked straight into its storm to save lives. She didn't simply offer aid. She helped build a system that ensured every American, no matter where they were or what they faced, would have a chance to receive help when it mattered most. Clara Barton's life is proof that gentleness is not weakness, and that the greatest strength can rise from compassion. In a world wounded by conflict, she chose love as her mission, not through grand speeches, but through a lifetime of unwavering service. Today, the American Red Cross, with its millions of volunteers, disaster relief efforts, medical support, and emergency response, is her living legacy. An organization that does not carry weapons, but carries hope. And in the hearts of countless veterans, nurses, doctors, and disaster survivors, Clara Barton is still present. The angel of the battlefield, the woman who turned human suffering into action and empathy into history. Clara Barton carried no rifle, issued no commands, and held no rank, but she redefined what courage truly means. She walked into battle not to claim glory, but to save the souls crushed beneath it, and in doing so, she transformed compassion into movement and pain into progress. American military history is filled with generals and heroes, but there is only one Clara Barton. If her story moved you, if you believe that kindness can shape history, help share that spirit. Please like, subscribe, and share this video with those who cherish history and believe in the power of compassion. Because some stories aren't just meant to be told, they're meant to live on.